Yesterday, Sayadaw explained what Pamada and Apamada are. He explained these two. Pamada is carelessness, heedlessness, negligence. With regard to what? With regard to avoiding what should be avoided, and with regarding doing what should be done. One fails to avoid things that should be avoided, and one fails to do what should be done. And in that way, one gets bad results. One gets bad results. Apamada is being careful, diligent, not neglecting, not failing to avoid that which should be avoided. And in doing so, one doesn't incur any bad results. And also, being diligent, not negligent, in carrying out things that should be done. And thus, one gets good results. Sayadaw mentioned yesterday that there are 3 groups or 3 grades of each of these, Pamada and Apamada. The gross level, or the obvious level, the medium grade level, and the refined or subtle level. And among these 3 groups, Sayadaw showed how the gross level or obvious level of Pamada and Apamada, negligence and carefulness, diligence, occur. And there's a lot to say about this, but today the turn falls to explaining how medium grade Pamada and Apamada occur, combining both theory and practice. We live in a world of the senses, the kama loka, and thus we as beings in this world, we crave the 5 kinds of sense pleasures. And when we don't just want them in an ordinary way, but have excessive longing, excessive craving for these, then it's not good. And one tends to want them for oneself, want desirable sights, sounds, touches, smells, tastes for oneself and for one's group. But one shouldn't have this type of wanting. When one encounters desirable objects, there should be a limit to one's experience with them. And in particular, one should not get involved in other people's marriages or other people's own. Let's see. One should basically, if one has a partner, one should stick with that partner and not be involved in other people's relationships. And this type of transgression is quite widespread. So Sayadaw mentioned that we understand what negligence, pamada, is on a gross level, and we make our physical and verbal behavior clean. But the mind of beings who live in the world of the senses, if we let it go, it will dwell on sense pleasures. It will dwell on desirable things that one can experience with the senses. And it's like not having any control, like having a house that has no door on it. Anyone can come in. So the mind should have a limit. And when we meet up with an enticing object, a desirable object of sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell, if we let the mind dwell on it, then that object tends to captivate us. It tends to tie us up. It tends to bind us. And thus this type of indulgence and these objects are not good. The word kama means desirable. And these are called in Pali kama guna. Something that is called kama is desirable. But it binds us, and therefore it's called kama guna. When someone desires these enticing experiences of the senses, one becomes bound by them. What Sayadaw said first of all was panchasu va kama gunesu cetasa osako osakanupadana. That is the Pali which describes the second grade of Pamada or negligence. These desirable things, the objects of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling, are things which can captivate us. And if we have no control of sati, if we don't exercise the control of sati on the mind, we will seek out good things to see, hear, taste, touch, smell. And of course, sometimes we encounter these naturally, but beyond that, one will seek them out, and one will, not only that, one will try to get better and better experiences. And one will let one's mind dwell on the things which one likes to hear, see, taste, touch, and smell. So one should keep away from things which are off limits. And one should only enjoy things which one possesses for oneself, or which one has a right to enjoy. And if one can't make this distinction, then one craves for whatever one happens to like. One doesn't control one's liking of something by this understanding of what is off limits. And this is pamada, this is negligence. And when one experiences one sense pleasure after another, then there's no time to develop cleanliness of mind. And if one doesn't have a pure, clean mind, then one will take actions that are unsuitable and will get bad results. So Sayadaw mentioned that letting the mind enjoy the five pleasures of the senses, enjoying these in all one does. This is called pamada. So in all one's actions, one will be letting one's mind have free rein. So this is pamada, and one must know what pamada is, negligence. If one spends time with negligence, one's mind will become weak, and one won't have any mental stamina, and one won't have the ability to resist the desirable objects one encounters. If, on the other hand, one prepares, one develops mental stamina and resistance, the mental energies that one needs to have a strong mind, when one encounters enjoyable objects, well, they'll just happen when one encounters them, and not that often, and one will not go seek out sense objects that belong to others. One won't want anything that belongs to another person in any way. So one won't seek out, one won't crave to have sounds, tastes, touch, smells, especially touch, regarding other people's own property or own business. And if, on the other hand, one goes after things that are not rightfully one's own, then one will become unjust, and one will spend one's time with sense pleasures, and thus there won't be any development of the mind. The human world that we live in is full of sense pleasures, and thus we experience them. But there should be a limit on our experience. There should be no involvement at all in enjoying sense pleasures that are not rightfully ours. Sense pleasures that have nothing to do with us. We shouldn't let our mind dwell on thoughts of enjoying sense pleasures that are not ours. And this is something that we have to be careful about. We have to train ourselves not to let our mind go there. So we should not let our mind go to thoughts about other people's business and other sense pleasures that do not belong to us. Not letting the mind enjoy the 5 pleasures of the senses, not enjoying these in all one does. This is called Pamada. So controlling the mind so that it doesn't dwell on the sense pleasures, especially not on what is not ours. Of course, if we can't avoid involvement in sense pleasures, then at least we have to not let our mind go to the thoughts of objects that are not related to us, that are not rightly our own. And when one can train oneself and restrain one's mind and behavior, such a one is a good person. Without mental control, without control of the mind, then there will be a lot of misdeeds of the mind, manoducharitas. For example, one will want to gain other people's possessions by unlawful means, and will even go to the point where one will only be satisfied if one gets that thing, and otherwise one won't be. And also one becomes dissatisfied when one sees that other people are well off. This is a form of anger. So in this case, such a person does not know the good results that come from developing mental control. And they also don't see the pitfalls, the faults of letting one's mind have free rein. And thus wavering, doubt is also involved. And so one indulges in sense pleasures as one likes. And one becomes bored, and one becomes old, and one thinks, oh, there's nothing more to live for. There's nothing more because these pleasures don't satisfy me anymore. And also people turn to drugs and drink as a way of satisfying their need for pleasures. So because of, there are many problems that come about because of indulgence in sense pleasures, and one of the problems can be seen in the diseases like AIDS, which occur due to indulgence in sex. If one lets one's mind dwell on whatever objects of the senses one enjoys, then one will spend all one's time enjoying these objects. And there will be no chance for the clean, pure mind to be developed or to occur. And this is the cause for madness to come about, a form of craziness, or one can go mad because of no control on the mind. And the first type of madness that Sayadaw mentioned is, he said, kamomatako lobhavasangato. So when one meets up with desirable things and doesn't exercise any mental control, one becomes mad due to the influence of greed in one's mind. So this person is, it's said that one falls under the influence of greed. When, such a person is called kamomatako, one who is mad regarding sense pleasures. At the present time, madness due to sense pleasures madness due to wanting sense pleasures is very prevalent. And what can happen is that, for example, if someone is a drug user, when those drugs become unavailable, then the person goes off mentally, out of control. And also with regard to seeking after relationships or sexual activity, one thing that happens when people indulge in this outside of the limits are disease can come up, and also people turn to transgressing, such as by means of rape or incest. And all these types of actions create problems in the world, social problems that are very difficult to solve. When one possesses the tool of apamada, or diligence, carefulness, the opposite of negligence, then this madness regarding sense pleasures can't arise. This is the power of apamada. When one lets oneself go under the influence of greed, then one won't have any thoughts of loving kindness or metta. One won't have any sympathy for others. One won't have any ability to forgive or to make sacrifices or any type of fairness in one's mind. There will be no qualities, no human qualities in one's mind. One who's driven mad by greed only thinks of oneself and one's group. And in following, trying to get what one wants, one is easily angered. So anger comes in, and anger also becomes excessive in one's mind. So if one follows and gives in to anger, one becomes mad due to that anger. And it said, kodo matako dosa vasangato. The type of madness occurs due to giving in to the angry mind. And this is prevalent in our world, whether it's one person against another, or one group against another, or one person against many others. People take guns or other weapons and they kill. A few days ago, in one of the countries of the world, a 16-year-old boy took a rifle and he went to a school and he killed a total of 26 people. He killed about 20 children and 6 teachers. And he killed his mother, who was also a teacher, and then himself. So why did this happen? This happened because this person had no understanding of how to control the mind. And at a young age, this knowledge was not developed. And also due to drug use. Drug use, of course, is madness due to greed. Kamo-matako. And following the drug use, he became mad due to anger. And this type of violence is prevalent in the world. And even in a Buddhist country like this one, there are places in which this type of violence happens. And in a period of decline, which the world is in at present, this is the type of thing which happens. This type of thing happening is because there's no knowledge, and because of lacking the knowledge of what is to be avoided and what is to be done. Things to be avoided should not be done. If we do them, they'll bring bad results. Things that are to be done should be done. That which is worth doing should be done. And if we do these things, then we'll get good results. Instead of this understanding, how people understand is the opposite. They think that by doing misdeeds, they're going to get some type of good result. So, Sayadaw mentioned the words kataba, what should be done, what is to be done, what is suitable to be done, and akataba, what should not be done. People don't know the method for doing what should be done and for avoiding what should not be done. And not knowing, they become as if blind. And the type of madness that comes up because people don't know or they know in the wrong way is called moho matako, madness due to delusion. Such a person is under the control of not knowing or knowing wrongly. And this describes about 99% of the people in the world. Not knowing what is beneficial, that is what brings good results, and what is unbeneficial, what brings bad results. The mind sees things in the wrong way. One's view becomes perverted, is the word vipallasa in Pali. So one sees what is good as bad. And this is so one's view basically becomes perverted, and because one's mind, the perception one has is incorrect, and one believes this. So, in this case, one's belief is wrong due to the misperception, and this also leads to a form of madness that is, and it's said that deto matako vipallasangato, vipallasa vasangato, one who is under the influence of misperceptions or illusions or perverted views is said to be mad with regard to wrong views. Sayadaw said that when one's mind misses the mark and takes misperceptions to be true, one believes the wrong things, and thus one takes the wrong path. One no longer takes the right path. And, for example, one may turn to drugs, taking drugs as a way of trying to find happiness, perhaps. And when one takes drugs, one's basic mind becomes changed. It's no longer the way it was originally. So if one's use of drugs is excessive, then one becomes mad due to following the being under the influence of drugs or drink. And so in Pali it said suromatako, suravasangato. One who is mad due to drugs just gives in to the drugs or the drink. And if one does that, if one gives in to alcohol, for example, then it affects one's health. It affects especially one's blood, and it also affects the bile. And when the bile becomes diseased, it can cause us to become mad also. And this is called petomatako, petavasangato, the one who is under the influence of this diseased bile becomes mad due to it. These things all occur because there is no control of apamada, or diligence, carefulness, vigilance. If one understands the pitfalls, the faults of being negligent, or of negligence, pamada, and if one understands the benefits of apamada, diligence, then one will work to make one's own world peaceful, to control oneself, and to not let one's mind go to any sense objects outside of oneself, to keep one's mind on one's own mind and body. And when one does this, then one can overcome the madness due to sense pleasures, kama mataka. And one can also, one gradually reduces the madness due to anger. One also reduces gradually, as one practices, the madness that is due to the madness that is due to not knowing, mohomataka, and the madness, because one is developing knowledge, one also reduces the disease of detomataka. So when one can also reflect properly, one won't go to drugs or alcohol as a resort to gain happiness. And because of not using drugs and alcohol, the problems, the health problems that come up due to this, the use of drugs and alcohol won't occur. So these forms of madness can all be overcome by the Satipatthana practice. And there are many other forms of madness also. Satipatthana can overcome these. So to overcome them, we need to control ourselves with sati all the time. And Sayadaw will continue this talk tomorrow. That's all for today. And Sayadaw will continue this talk tomorrow. That's all for today. And Sayadaw will continue.